What's up, everybody? My name is Paddock, and today I'm going to show you 4 steps to make your improv sound a whole lot better. If you enjoy my YouTube channel, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and click the bell for notifications. Today, I'm going to show you a really good way to organize your practice session when you're trying to learn how to improvise over new chord changes. So for this tutorial, I'm going to assume that you already know how to play over chord changes, and I'm going to show you how to take what you already know and organize it and make it sound a lot better. If not, I've done a couple videos on that, and I'll put a link in the description. But for this tutorial, I'm going to show you 4 steps to organize the way you practice over the chord changes to make your solo sound a whole lot better. The first step for improvising over chord changes is always going to be to learn the actual chord changes. For the examples today, I'm going to use the first 8 measures for the tune All the Things You Are in the key of F, which is the alto key. So you want to make sure that you can play the chords before you try to do any improvisation stuff at all. So a really good starting point is just doing chord outlines. All I'm doing there is playing root position chord outlines, 1, 3, 5, 7 for each measure. For example, for the D minor 7, I'm playing D, F, A, C. And then the G minor 7, I go G, B flat, D, F. And so on and so forth for the rest of the chords in the tune. Now, when it comes to organizing your practice session for soloing over chord progressions, the first thing you want to do after you can play the chord changes in root position, just doing chord outlines, is take your chord outlines and turn them into a solo. So you're going to be doing chord outline solos, which means you're only going to use your chord tones for each chord to play a solo. So to start off, you might want to do a really simple kind of still root position, but just changing the rhythm a little bit. That's a really good starting place, but once you've got that down, you want to try and play a solo that actually sounds like a solo, but you're only going to use the chord tones. So what you're doing with this is you're getting your ear really used to the chord tones, you're driving them in, and you're getting super comfortable transitioning between the chords. So this is a super important step, and it's going to make your improv sound really good and really inside the changes. Here's an example of a chord outline solo written over the first 8 measures of All the Things You Are. In this solo, I will only be playing chord tones, but I'm going to do it in a way that it sounds like an actual solo instead of me just playing chords. That is a super important thing to practice, probably one of the most important things to practice, because you're going to really hear the chord changes. You're just going to naturally gravitate towards the chord tones the more you practice these chord outline solos. If you'd like a step-by-step approach to learning improvisation, I'd like to invite you to check out the Scott Paddock Sax School. In the Sax School, I start off with 1-note solos, and we go all the way up into more complex chord changes. And in every song, we go step by step, working our way through it so that you understand exactly what you're doing and how you can apply it to anything else that you are going to solo over. So if you're looking to add some organization and structure into your saxophone practice sessions, I'd like to invite you to check out the Scott Paddock Sax School. Now, a big problem that people have when they first start improvising, or they're like early on in their improv journey, is for each chord or each scale, they start over. So for example, the D minor 7, they think, okay, this is D minor, D natural minor, so D to D with a B flat. Then they move on to G minor 7, they're like, all right, G minor 7, so that's G to G with a B flat. And then they move on to C7, they're like, all right, C7, that's C mixolydian, C to C with a B flat. If you hear me describing these scales, you can hear that I keep saying the same key signature, and that's because chords work together. So what I like to have students do is practice in tonal centers. So tonal centers are basically practicing in key signatures. So look at the chords and see how they're related to each other. Now this song is in the key of F major, and your first chord, the D minor 7, is the 6th chord. The G minor 7 is the 2 chord. The C7 is the 5 chord. The F major 7 is the 1 chord. and the B flat major 7 is the 4 chord. And all 5 of these chords have the exact same key signature because they're all working in the tonal center of F major. So the key signature for all 5 of these chords is just a B flat. So if you think about these first 5 measures just being in the key of F, as opposed to thinking about separate scales, or at this point, even the chord tones, you're going to be able to play really smooth and connected lines. Now, I like to have students practice this because one of the big problems is connecting your line over the bar line and from chord to chord. So if you just think about it in a key signature, your line is going to sound really smooth and really clean. Now, the downfall with this is you're not going to hear the chords as well, but we'll fix that in the next step. My idea with this one is just getting you used to seeing how the chords are working together, what your tonal center is, and getting your lines to sound really smooth. Now, let's take a look at measures 6, 7, and 8. We have a tonal center shift. So we go to the key of A major. So A major is obviously F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. And if we look at the B minor 7, the E7, going to the A major 7, that is a 2-5-1 in the key of A. So for those 3 chords, you would just think F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. So again, we're just thinking tonal centers or key signatures so that you can play really flowing lines that are really connected. So when I do a tonal center solo over the first 8 measures for all the things you are, for the first 5 measures, I'm going to think just B flat. And then for the next 3 measures, I'm going to think F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. Take a listen to my solo example. As you can hear in that example, the lines are moving really smooth and everything is super connected. So with that method, you're playing over the changes. And what that means is you're playing the right notes at the right time, but you're not necessarily hitting the changes because you're not bringing out the chord tones. But I think this is a really good thing to practice because it's going to get you used to connecting these chords and moving your way through it. So the first thing you want to do is play chord outline solos. The second is play tonal center solos. Can you guess what the third step is going to be? We're going to put those 2 things together. And the more you practice your chord outline solos, the more they're just going to pop up when you're playing because you're going to hear them. So now we're going to think tonal centers, but we're going to bring out the chord tones. So you're going to hear the actual chord changes in your solo, even though you're kind of thinking just in the key signature. So you want to bring out your chord tones while weaving your way through these chords, thinking about your tonal center or your key signature. When I combine the chord tones with the tonal centers, you can really hear the changes, but everything still sounds smooth and the chords are connected really easily. You can really hear the chords change and the lines are really smooth. As an intermediate improviser, this should be one of your big goals, is to be able to play smooth lines while still bringing out your chord changes, your chord tones. Let me know in the comment section what tune you are currently working on and if you think this 4-step method will help improve your improvisation on it. The last step is adding in some chromaticism. So when you add in chromaticism, that's going to make the line sound even smoother and you're going to be introducing some notes that aren't in your chord tones or your scales or tonal centers. And that's actually going to make your music, your improv, sound a lot more interesting. So if you just play tonal centers and chord tones, everything's going to sound really good and it's going to sound really correct. But if you want it to sound a little bit more interesting, you need to introduce some things that are unexpected, and a great way to do that is through the use of chromaticism. Now, I usually don't teach this step until students are doing really well with tonal centers and chord tones, but this is a really great way to add some more interesting sounds and stuff into your solos. Take a listen to my solo example where I add in some chromaticism. I only added in 2 chromatic notes over that entire 8-measure phrase, but by adding in those 2 chromatic notes, it made the phrase flow more, it made it sound more like bebop jazz, and it just made everything sound a whole lot better. So take a listen to where I added in the chromaticism. I'm going to start at the top without the backing track, and then we're going to talk about what I added. Right there, I put in the G sharp. So I went B flat, G, G sharp. So I'm going from the chord tone of the B flat down to the chord tone of the G, and then using the G sharp as a chromatic step to get to the chord tone of the A. By doing that, it makes the line sound really smooth and it adds in an unexpected note. It just makes the line sound a whole lot better than if I didn't add in that chromatic step. That doesn't sound nearly as natural. The second chromatic note I added in was the G natural in measure 6. For this phrase, I added in the G to keep the chromaticism going. So I'm playing F sharp, G, G sharp, A. So it's a chromatic line there. You don't have to add in a ton of chromaticism. A little bit will go a long way and it'll make your line sound a whole lot smoother. So the 4 things you should be practicing to make your improv solos sound a whole lot better are 1. Chord outline solos, 2. Tonal center solos, 3. Putting your chord outlines and tonal centers together, and 4. Adding in some chromaticism. Now, adding in the chromaticism is a little bit more difficult. I don't recommend doing that until you've got the first 3 steps down really well. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. If you'd like to dive deeper into my saxophone world and learn a whole lot more about improvisation or any aspect of playing the saxophone, I'd like to invite you to check out the Scott Paddock Sax School.